Oh, yo. So I want to talk about the most influential albums in my career as an artist. Now, every artist has albums that really inspired them. Every artist has albums that were like milestones for them. When they heard it, it did something to them. I'm gonna start off at the very top. There was an album by the name of "And Then There Was X" by a legendary artist, rest in peace, God rest his soul, DMX. And that particular album, granted, by the time I was listening to it, I was like in second grade, and the album had already been out for 4, maybe 5 years at that time, or something like that. And every day I would come home from school, I would do my homework, and as I'm doing my homework, my dad would play that album. Granted, I really didn't know much of what I was listening to. I really had no business even listening to the album, if I'm gonna be honest with y'all. But my dad was a very brash, very confident kind of guy, and so he didn't feel like there was too many things we couldn't be around while they were happening. Whether he was right or wrong about that, that remains to be debated and discussed in a different video. But I remember hearing that song, and I remember hearing this particular record, with these bees one, right? I don't even think it's named that, but I remember hearing that record, and I remember hearing like just vibing with the song, right? Mind you, I'm 8 years old at this time, and I know the lyrics word for word, but I have no idea, like no idea at all of what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, what do these things mean. But the energy, right? It was the energy of DMX in that album. It was the energy, it was the aggression, it was the believability of it. Like at this point in time, I had never seen what DMX looked like, but I believed in my mind, he in my mind, I felt like he was a 6'5" dark skinned dude that was just running around punching people, right? But you know, that just speaks to the energy. That just speaks to the believability in what he was saying and what he was talking about, the storytelling. Like, granted, I was so young at the time. Again, I don't understand what he's saying, but you felt it, right? Even if you didn't know what he was talking about, you felt it. And DMX was probably in my childhood, like my very early childhood, before I really could understand hip hop and rap and everything like that. He probably was the most popular rapper in the world. Like at one point in time, DMX was the biggest rapper in the world. Some of us are too young to even remember that, or some of us are disconnected from hip hop in the sense where we're unaware of that. But DMX at one point in time was the biggest thing in the world. And even when his albums weren't as good as those earlier projects, he would still drop huge singles like Will We Be. That was one of my favorite singles he ever dropped. And then Lord Give Me a Sign, which was a different angle for X, but it was still X. And he was still able to drop major big records. It was just something about this album that just had me. I'm not gonna say I became a fan of hip hop after hearing this album, but I became very in tune to what hip hop was, and I kind of wanted to explore it more. So one of my most influential albums was "And Then There Was X." Shout out to DMX, rest in peace. Another album that was very influential for me was the Eminem Show. For those that know me, you probably knew there was going to be an Eminem album on here. You just wasn't sure which one. The Eminem Show was the first time that I heard an artist openly criticize their mother in music. Now, we had one of the most legendary songs about a mom from Tupac. And he praises his mama. He talks about her, and he talks about her in such a light, even recognizing some of her flaws in the song, but still saying you were a queen. Most rappers speak about their mothers in it's a very, especially during that time, because I was born in the 90s. So during that time, and even after, when rappers talked about their mom, they talked about their mom in such a positive light, and they would demonize their father. Like the father, like if the dad, they just demonized the dad, and the mom was put on the pedestal. Eminem was the first rapper who I ever heard openly criticize their mom on a song, openly talk about things that make his mom look less favorable. And that was very important for me, not because I want to demonize my mom. My mom's amazing. My mom's an amazing woman. But what it did for me was that it taught me that there's no topic off limits in hip hop. See, up until I heard Eminem, right, there were certain topics that everyone could talk about. You can talk about being a drug dealer. You can talk about being a killer. You can talk about having money. You can talk about having women. Very few rappers were breaking the mold of that. Very few rappers were not talking about that. Or you could talk about the struggle of being in the hood, you know. Very few rappers fell outside of those lines. Very few. Oh yeah, you can make like positive, like party music and stuff like that. But very few rappers didn't fall in those lines. Eminem brought a different dynamic for me in my ears. Not saying it didn't exist before him, but it brought a different dynamic for me. It brought the therapeutic dynamic. It brought the dealing with the celebrity lifestyle dynamic, like the downsides of being one of the biggest stars in the world, because he talked about a lot of that on this particular album. He talked about hate and criticism and trying to be recognized, right? With songs like Till I Collapse, which should have been a single. Till I Collapse should have been a single, but it wasn't. Songs like White America, like he talks about so many different topics, right? That he was talking about, and he taught me in this particular album, there's no topic off limits. Every topic in hip hop can be talked about and should be talked about. And he was the person that did it. But not only did he do that in this particular album, in most of his albums, not only did he do that, he did it in a way where it didn't feel cheesy and cringy. You ever heard those hip hop songs that are like meant to be positive and they sound every bit as bland like as a bowl of rice? Like they sound just like a bowl of white rice, just bland, no flavor. That's how it would sound. Eminem did it in a way where it was like, damn, I get this. And what he did was he opened up a whole lane for rappers and other artists to just talk about things that may not have been popular to talk about, right? There's another artist that I could talk about in a different vlog that does that too. He's not nearly as big as Eminem, and there aren't too many artists who are, but he does it as well. But Eminem opened up that lane for me. He opened up the art of telling a story, even if the story isn't like glamorous, right? And just being honest in who he was as an artist. That's why he kind of blew up so big. Granted, being white played a role in that, but the talent that he has is undeniable. The beats with Dr. Dre, the production on there, undeniable. The singles he had on that album, Cleaning Out My Closet, Sing for the Moment, these were huge, huge, huge singles, and it just spoke to vulnerability. And it was just super important for me to hear that at that age. Another album on the list, I spoke about this album before, but I'm gonna go into a little more detail about it. Urban Legend, T.I. Shout out to Mr. Harris, the King of the South. Urban Legend was the first official CD that I bought. Now I bought trap music, but it was a bootleg. I bought Lloyd Banks, Hunger for More. That was a bootleg. But Urban Legend was the first CD that I bought. I was underage, so I couldn't even get it when I got it. My aunt actually ended up cursing out the young lady at the time. So I was way underage for getting that CD. I was 6 or 7 years too young to get that CD. But Urban Legend was the first time where I became a huge fan of an artist. I'll explain. Urban Legend, when I bought the CD, you opened it up, it had it had the songs on it, on the inside, song credits and all of that on the inside. And I read that thing from cover to cover, right? The CD, if I remember correctly, the CD was orange with like greenish writing, T.I. Urban Legend. And it was so cool to see that. And then my mom would drive around and play the CD. She would come and get us. I would give her the CD. She'd play the CD from the first song to the last song. I remember how it starts out. It started out with King, and then it starts out with it's King, then Motivation, then You Don't Know Me, ASAP. I remember the first four off the top, right? And we would play that, and I knew the lyrics word for word. And kind of going back to what DMX did, even kind of what Eminem did, but to a lesser degree, right? He didn't really do a lot of that on Urban Legend, in terms of like, he story told on Urban Legend, but not like he was doing on trap music. Trap music was a lot of storytelling. But the brash and the confidence that DMX gave off, T.I. was giving that off in Urban Legend. Like, you felt that confidence. Then you had songs like Motivation that uplifted you, that made you want to go do something, that inspired you to get up out of a situation, right? Not back down, right? Motivation, one of those songs that got you up, man. Like, it made you want to go do something, made you want to go achieve something, made you want to go prove something. And a lot of T.I. Urban Legend felt like that. It felt like, I'm gonna go prove this. Like, y'all don't think I belong here, I'm gonna go prove it. And me being a short man, a short kid at the time, athlete, very competitive, that's been my mentality, right? Backtracking a little bit, the Eminem show had a lot of that too. I'm going to prove that I belong here. And now going back to Urban Legend, that was a huge thing for me. I'm gonna prove I belong here. I don't look like you, I don't sound like you, but I'm gonna prove it. See, what I went through a lot growing up in Philly was I always had this red hair, right? I was born like this. I was short, had very long hair, fair skin, a couple of freckles on my face, and anything that I wanted to do, I was met with a lot of rejection initially. And people will make comments about those physical features as to that's the reason why I can't do whatever it is I'm attempting to do. And when I looked at T.I., right, and I first heard him with Rubber Band Man. That was the first song I heard from him in my life. And then I seen Be Easy. That's one of my favorite songs. When I first saw him, what I recognized was that he didn't look like the East Coast rappers. He didn't sound like the East Coast rappers, right? But he was indeed a rapper. He was indeed a rapper that most of us would put into the gangster genre of music. But he didn't sound like them necessarily. And what I understood, without even understanding it, was that, without recognizing that I understood it, what I understood was, damn, that I understand that language. I understand, like, goddamn, like, I belong here. I may not sound like you because I may not sound like the kids around me, right? Because my dad, I was reading books very early. I was reading a lot. My vocabulary was a little more advanced than a lot of my peers. Not all of them, but a lot of my peers. My vocabulary was a little more advanced. So what I recognized was that I didn't sound like a lot of them, right? I didn't look like any of them, but I was just as talented, if not more. And I belonged, and I had to fight to show I belong. And I identified that with T.I., especially in Urban Legend, because Urban Legend feels a lot like that. Like, it feels a lot like I'm showing you I belong here, right? Songs like Bring 'Em Out, things like that. It was showing that he belonged in the game. He was giving you the part, like not necessarily party songs, but happy or more positive songs like Bring 'Em Out, where like it's about dancing, right? It's about dancing, about having a good time in the club. He gave you the street shit, You Don't Know Me, right? He gave you Motivation, King, Triumphant, right? Boss Music, ASAP, party songs like Get Loose with Nelly. Like, he gave you such a wide range, right? And then he gave you that kind of that confident T.I. swagger with like songs like Countdown, right? So it was like, it's hearing those types of things. That album, to me, is the album, in my personal opinion, based on how it sound like you could tell, to me, that Urban Legend was heavily influenced by East Coast, but maintaining the down south roots. You could tell he was influenced by a lot of East Coast artists, but he maintained his down south roots. And for me, that was important for me to see, man. Like, it was important for me to understand that I could be influenced by different people, but I am who I am, and who I'm not, I'll never be. Next album on the list, we're gonna go Victory Lap from the late great Nipsey Hussle. Now, Victory Lap is important. I became a fan of Nipsey Hussle back in like 2015, 16, right? 2015, 16. I had seen Nipsey Hussle in the movie with Gilly the Kid and Ving Rhames. I seen that way back. I was a little kid when I seen that. But I became a fan because I used to watch The State of Nate, right? For those who don't know, Nate Robinson used to do vlogs called The State of Nate when he was in the league. And then Isaiah Thomas did the Book of Isaiah. And in those vlogs, you would hear a lot of Nipsey Hussle music. Right? Nipsey, E40, etc. I said, yo, who is this dude? I like his shit, right? And this is what I'm saying. And the first project I heard from him was the Crenshaw project. And then there was another one, Bigger Than Life, I think it's called. I think it's called Bigger Than Life, the song Bigger Than Life. I think that's what it's called. And Nipsey has some cold lines in there, right? Like some dope lines in there. I think he has a line where he says, I don't want your help. Just let me suffer through this. The world would not know Jesus Christ if there was never Judas. Like, he had some cold lines in there. And he showed you he could rap, right? The thing with Nipsey is that Nipsey had a swagger. He had such a confidence with him that it was hard to recognize that when Nipsey wanted to rap well, he could. Granted, he ain't gonna double line time you to death. He's not gonna do that. But when he wants to buckle down and say, I'm gonna show you I can rap, he's an above average rapper. Bar for bar, he's an above average rapper. That's something I don't think he gets enough credit for. We give him credit for the storytelling, the authenticity, the confidence, but he's a better rapper than people give him credit for. Victory Lap was important for me because it showed me the importance of staying down until you come up. Now, granted, in 2016, I had a workout for the CFL. Had a workout in 2016 for the CFL, and in that workout, I worked out it was a bunch of guys out there working out for these teams. We ran 40s and all that. I ran a terrible 40. Didn't know how to run a 40. That's a different story. But one guy gave me a ride back to my hotel, and while he was giving me a ride back to my hotel, he was telling me how important Nipsey was. Right? He was telling me how Nipsey was just like a god over there on the West Coast. We were in San Diego at the time, and he was telling me like, bro, Nipsey is a god out here, bro. Like, he's a god out here. You know what I'm saying? And like, that was huge for me to hear, because on the East Coast, we weren't too familiar with Nipsey in 2006. He wasn't huge over here in 2016, not yet. And to hear when I was over there that he was the guy over there, he was huge over there, and so that made me dial into him a little bit more. And I just remember thinking to myself, this guy got confidence, he got swagger, he got everything you want. Like he looked the part. When you heard him, he felt like the part. And then like he had like this entire blueprint, document, and going all the way back to when he started. Interviews going back to when he started. By the time he blew up on the East Coast, Nipsey was about 32 years old. Nipsey had been rapping since he was probably like, in his teens. He was a XXL freshman at one point. And by the time he had blew up and became a megastar, right, he was like 32, 33 years old. And the Victory Lap, to me, aside from it just being an amazing album, the intro song was amazing. Bro, the album itself is like, I play the album straight through. There's no skips. Right? No skips at all, to me. I play the album straight through. I bought it the day it came out on my iPad, like straight through. And at that time, I was getting ready, when his album dropped, I was getting ready for the NFL draft. So it just was the theme. It was just such a theme for me. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is a testament of how Stan Dynasty would come up. This is what that means. He believed in himself. He believed in what he was doing. He didn't need a whole bunch of outside validation. He found people that liked what he did, monetized his music toward them, geared it towards them, used that momentum, use that leverage to then give himself a better situation, partnership with, I believe it was Atlantic Records, I believe. I'm not even sure, it could be that, but he used that situation to then give him leverage and creating a partnership that allowed him to then catapult his career into the mainstream music scene. And so Victory Lap, not only was it a great album, damn near a perfect album, it was a testament to Stand Down Till You Come Up.